Yep. And as I always start this off with, ain't nothing new under the sun, right? So I've been speaking about in the last few videos that I was going to start a little series about the Psyop, that is what we know as the NAACP. So today's going to be that day. So at first, I really wasn't too sure on whether or not I wanted to start off with the founders or the founding funders and then show the connections of how they all overlap with different entities like political parties and or certain PACs where all the money flows. You just gotta follow the paper trail. Well, for whatever reason, I was going through some old files yesterday and actually stumbled upon an old video. So what I decided to do is we're going to start off with the founding members or the original board. This way, you can get an idea of the individuals that actually created this organization that we now look to for guidance. So we're going to start off again with W.E.B. Du Bois, and we'll start right here. So as you know, we are now starting off with the founders of the NAACP, not the founding funders, but the founders or the public face of it. So we'll start off with W.E.B. Du Bois, who was a pivotal co-founder of the NAACP in 1909 and a leading voice for African American rights. As the only Black officer on the board and founder editor of its magazine, The Crisis, from 1910 to 1934, he championed racial equality, targeted segregation, and exposed injustices. Now, there are a few things that I would like to speak about when it comes to our one and only Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. And that would be his connections to Margaret Sanger. Now, you see here it says, beginning in 1939, Du Bois served on the advisory council for Sanger's Negro Project, which was a 22-page opposition claims about Margaret Sanger's design to serve African Americans in the rural South. Now, in the description, I will be linking Birth Control or Race Control, Sanger and the Negro Project, which is hosted by nyu.edu. And I'll also be linking the Black Politics of Eugenics. Now, why this is important is, as I always say, if you want to know who someone is, just look at their circle, right? All right, well, we're going to see exactly what the connection between W.E.B. Du Bois and Margaret Sanger was, because if you didn't know, she is the darling of the Democratic Party, but her sole goal in life was to eradicate the American Negro off the face of the planet. All right, so there you have it. So now the reason that I bring up Margaret Sanger is the creator of a few things, but one of them is what we now know today is Planned Parenthood. And if you remember, during the last election cycle, every time Kamala made a stop, according to the press, there were Planned Parenthood vans in said parking lots that were providing free services for anyone that wanted them. Well, if you understand Hillary Clinton, as she said about Molech or Moloch, or Baal or Baal, however you want to pronounce it. But certain individuals or people believe in certain things and certain practices that require certain rituals to be, shall we say, practiced in order for blessings to be obtained. But you can look that up on your own time. But to me, what's more important is if you want to know who someone is, look at the 5 closest people to them, and that'll tell you exactly who they are. So one of W.E.B. Du Bois's big supporters was Margaret Sanger, and he himself was also a supporter of hers because she wanted a way to get into the Black community to start pushing her agenda, and she used W.E.B. Du Bois to do it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of time and we're going to actually look at that video that I made about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit less, about Miss Sanger.
This is your man, the man about town, Petty Murphy, reporting to you live from the back of the classroom with Alcata News Network. What is that? Wait a minute. Stay tuned. Breaking news.
Many whites who are trying to solve the problem, but you never see them going under the label of liberals. That white person that you see calling himself a liberal is the most dangerous thing in the entire Western Hemisphere. He's the most deceitful. He's like a fox. And a fox is always more dangerous in the forest than the wolf. You can see the wolf coming. You know what he's up to. But the fox will fool you. He comes at you with his mouth shaped in such a way that even though you see his teeth, you think he's smiling. You take him for a friend.
Mrs. Margaret Slee, president of America's Planned Parenthood Federation, maintains that European women should stop having babies for the next 10 years.
Well, I suppose a subject like that is really so personal that it's entirely up to the parents to decide. But from my view, I believe that there should be no more babies.
The term, a set of beliefs and practices that aim to improve the genetic quality of a human population. Historically, by excluding people and groups judged to be inferior and promoting those judged to be superior. There have been various applications of eugenics, perhaps the most famous being the Germans before and during World War II, which was condemned by the Nuremberg war crimes trials. But the Germans did not invent eugenics. In fact, they were inspired by the founder of the taxpayer-funded Planned Parenthood. The truth behind the genesis of that organization and its founder are much darker than most Americans realize. Who was the real Margaret Sanger? Why was she heralded by the Third Reich as the greatest socialist in America? Why do modern Democrats who claim to support the African American population justify presenting her as a cultural icon? Hello. Sanger refused to pay the fine and spent 30 days in jail. She then traveled the country preaching her concepts. Sanger then founded the American Birth Control League in 1921. Sanger also endorsed the 1927 decision Buck v. Bell, in which the Supreme Court ruled that states could forcibly sterilize people deemed unfit without their consent and sometimes without their knowledge. In 1939, Sanger began what was called the Negro Project, alongside black leaders like W.E.B. Du Bois, Mary McLeod Bethune, and Reverend Adam Clayton Powell. This was the plan to have black doctors performing on black patients to perpetuate the sterilization of blacks who were deemed inferior, as many black patients were suspicious of white doctors. Following upon Sanger's eugenics platform, disguised as giving women access to birth control, the ABCL became Planned Parenthood Federation of America in 1942 after birth control was no longer considered illegal, at least among married couples. During this period, Sanger had critics and supporters. The supporters even today claim that she condemned abortion, arguing that it would not be needed if every woman had access to birth control. What they leave out is that Sanger only opposed abortions if that meant not producing the best, healthiest, most intelligent from Caucasian couples. For blacks, Jews, and brown-skinned people, as well as low IQ white people and those with birth defects, they were not to be allowed. This was what the Nazis adopted. Ironically, in 1966, Planned Parenthood began issuing its Margaret Sanger Awards annually to honor individuals of distinction in recognition of excellence and leadership in furthering reproductive health and reproductive rights. However, the organization very quietly and without any fanfare stopped this practice as Black Lives Matter rose to prominence. It would have been seen as the height of hypocrisy to have a liberal-backed domestic terror group that attacked white America connected to Sanger, a Democrat darling who wanted to exterminate blacks. In fact, the last recipient of the award listed on the website is Dr. Willie Parker in 2015. Then it just quietly disappeared. Parker was an abortionist known for his contentious claims that his Christian faith influenced his work. He was accused of sexual assault in 2019, which he denied, but he still resigned from all of his professional positions in 2020. Other recipients of the Margaret Sanger Award include House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and actresses Jane Fonda and Katharine Hepburn. Margaret Sanger was one of the few women to be given an honorific title and inducted into the Ku Klux Klan, and exalted by none other than Adolf Hitler and Dr. Joseph Goebbels. She was friends with the racist Democratic President Woodrow Wilson, Democratic fundraiser, and automobile maker Henry Ford, who was also friends with Adolf Hitler and a rabid anti-Semite and hater of black Americans. Margaret Sanger's rabid racism, anti-Semitism, and violent suggestions on eliminating all non-whites from American society endeared her to the eugenics crowd. She wanted an all-white, healthy, intelligent society built upon the concept of racial eradication years before Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party were even a thought.
Yeah. Diabolical. Yesterday was Gandhi. Today is Margaret Sanger. I don't know what else to say. But I said it yesterday, and I'm going to say it again. Anytime people go out of their way to prop someone up and hand deliver them to you as your hero, it's being done for a reason. And again, it's the same party, the same group of people that's in there pushing the same agenda. So you see, in the late 1800s, you had an old Indian dude running around by the name of Gandhi that was kicking the same shit that Senior Kirk was kicking. Huh? Then you fast forward, we get into the early 1900s. And now you got Mrs. Sanger, the darling of the National Socialist Party. So what's funny is, right, the same people who spent the last election cycle pointing fingers, calling certain people F-words and N-words. You know, you can't say those on certain media networks because they'll hit you with the hammer. But it's a political ideology. You know, Germany used to run with it, Mussolini and all them. But for some reason, you know, they say when you point your finger at someone, you got things pointing back at you. Now, this is a wild world we live in, and it's crazy because all of your heroes are Asians. All the people that they told us in school were the good ones. Boy, let me tell you something. Inversion is the fastest way to perversion. Everything is upside down. Everything is backwards. We have been lied to our whole lives about history, religion, politics, all of it. All of it. It's one big psyop, and the joke's on us. So, once again, I know everybody's gonna be. So, during last election, when Planned Parenthood had all those trucks outside each stop where they were having rallies, giving out, you know, free you-knows. That was a ritual. You ever heard of Moloch? You know, one of them ancient gods from the Sumerians and shit. You know, just go look it up. Go look up Moloch. Yeah, the god of child sacrifice. This is how long we've been playing this game. Our ancestors did it. And on down the line. And here we are today, still doing it. We've just given them all different names. Some of it's even changed to pharmakeia. I'm sorry. Witchcraft is what they call it. But yeah, it's, like I say, it's the wild world we live in, and I get it. It can be hard to believe. But once again, one of the Democratic darlings, and don't you find it odd that they love giving that award to people that look like this? The woman whose sole purpose in life was to eradicate people who look like this? Huh? And then the institutions that her and her devilish sisters created all seem to be congregated in a place where the majority of the people who live there look like this. But nah, they wouldn't do that. Not the liberal left. They would not do that. Not to us. Because Brother Martin walked us into this burning building, and then he told us after that I think I may have walked my people into a burning building. Brother Malcolm said, don't you trust them old liberals over there. But who we trusting? Because for some reason, our black asses don't like to listen. And you know my dad used to tell me, son, a hard head make a soft ass. And this is why everyone comes here. They play in our face. They say it with their whole chest. You and a kata. You niggas have no culture. Hey, black people, you think we need your help? Get your popcorn, sit back and watch how the Mexicans do it. Arriba, mi hora la raza. And it's crazy because these cats are here illegally and playing in your face. And you belong to the only group that can't be deported, and they playing in your face. And then everything that your tax dollars go to was designed to destroy you from the inside out, and you fight for it. Whoo, this is why they laugh at us. But yeah, get out of here. Y'all have a wonderful day. And remember, realize, and transparency forces accountability. Y'all keep your eyes to the stars and keep that head on a swivel. Because it's a dangerous game they playing. And if you don't stay locked in, you're going to be a victim.
And this is the part when you ask yourself, and I really watched what I just watched. I know W.E.B. ain't do what I think he did. This can't be real. Nah. I refuse to believe it. I refuse to believe this bullshit. Well, go look it up for yourself.
Well, all right. It is what it is. And that's where we at with it. I highly suggest if anything that I've said up to this point or shown you has piqued your interest, whether you believe it or not, you believe it or you don't. I could be wrong. By all means, all I'm asking people to do is start asking the questions that we need to be asking so we can get the answers that we need to get answered. So when you see people like Gavin Newsom get on stage and tell you, I got a 960 on my SATs and I can't read just like you. Or AOC tells you, nah, there won't be no reparations for y'all niggas. But the illegals that just got over here, oh, they definitely deserve it. And if you've been paying attention, they've been finding ways to get it to them. When Mandami gets on stage and says, this is a country built by immigrants. Now it's run by immigrants. As if our ancestors were not here to facilitate and take part in the foundation and building of what we now call the United States of America. So I'll say this and I'll get out of here. If W.E.B. Du Bois, then in the 1930s, after already founding the NAACP with the founders, funding founders, assistants, of course, and they were already pushing their agenda, what does it say about a man that would push the agenda of a Margaret Sanger, knowing exactly what it was? because it's not like she ever hid what her agenda or what her ultimate purpose was. She was very, very out front. So much, in fact, that she was getting handwritten letters of thank you and approval from you know who. So yeah, as I always say, realize, and transparency forces accountability. Yo, we're at the precipice where we're at that tipping point where if we don't start paying attention, you think what actually is happening out here about people telling us that we have no culture and we don't know who we are. What we have to understand is that that first form of colonialism that we went through, this is the neo form of it. And they're using people that look just like you to play in your face and violate you. Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I'll have these Negroes voting Democrat for the next 200 years and they won't know why. Are we going to start asking ourselves yet why? While the NAACP tells you to go dry ice, when none of us have immigrant lineage as foundational Black Americans, right? Or as the copper-colored indigenous races, as Solon or Eidos, whichever misnomer you identify as. But if you are a Black American and you have genealogy that ties you back to this landmass in Turtle Island, I'm talking to you. We need to start asking the questions out loud that need to be asked so that we can get the proper information and answers. Because if we keep doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results to manifest, that is the definition of insanity. And the fact that I can show you, and no one can tell me that anything I made up is wrong or a conspiracy, that one of the founders of the NAACP that I keep telling you was a psyop, was a heavy supporter of Margaret Sanger, the godmother of eugenics, whose sole purpose was to eradicate the American Negro off the face of the planet. But y'all keep your eyes to the stars. Keep that head on a swivel, because it's a dirty, dangerous game, and we are in the den of diabolical demons, aka the Viper's Nest. W.E.B. Du Bois is one of the people that laid the cornerstone to the foundation of this structure that continues to have us in a mental bondage, that we're so much under a spell that most of us either don't want to see, can't, refuse, or are too scared to see what's really going on. Because once you do, you have an obligation to maintain your sovereignty and your soul and not be complicit in what all of our governments across the globe, all of the athletes and the entertainers, all of the stars are the fallen watchers that, whether we realize it or not, we've all been worshiping. We're following down a road that we're not going to be able to come back from. And they're using people just like you to manipulate your intergenerational trauma to get you to do what it is they want you to do. But yeah, I'm gonna get out of here, man. Y'all be safe out there. Hey, it is what it is, but it's a dirty game. But if you stay aware and pay attention to the signs and the symbols and the repetition of patterns, you'll be able to see and use that eye of discernment. But these motherfuckers is not playing. And I'll be back when I can with a part 2. I don't know which founder I'll do next. Maybe y'all can leave it in the comments for your boy. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and share. I appreciate all the people that continuously come through and show love. And I'm out.